So just before we form relationships, we need to just make sure that our field names have no spaces. So for example, over here, address 1, there's address space 1. So what you need to do is remove that space and put an underscore in place of that space. So to do this, you go to Home, View, Design View. And for example, address 1, we're just going to backspace, underscore. Address 2, there's a space between each of these, so we're just going to backspace, put an underscore. Address 3, same thing. Postcode, underscore. So now this table is fine. So now we're going to go to the cars table, and we're going to do the same thing. So wherever there's a space, we are going to remove it and put an underscore in its place. So you see it says bought by. So we're going to go to Home, View, Design View, and bought by, we're going to backspace and put an underscore in its place. And we can just save this table, so it saves this change, and then right click on customer and save as well, so it saves that change. So now what we're going to do is form relationships between these two tables. So to make relationships, you go to Database Tools, Relationships, insert both tables that you have imported, and maybe just extend each of these tables so you can see all the fields. So to form relationships, what you got to do is take one primary key for one of these tables, so for example car ID, and we need to link it to another field in the other table which contains the same information as car ID. There is no obvious connection between car ID and any of these other fields, because car ID is not customer ID. So if the link between car ID cannot be made with this table over here, we then have a look at customer ID and see if we can make a link with any field over here. So the trick here is to maybe have a look at customers, and if you go to Home, View, Datasheet View, you need to look at the customer ID field and just have a look at the data that is in this field. Just have a look at how it looks. So it's got like B0001, etc. So we need to find a field in the car table that looks similar to this field. So if we go to Cars, we go to Home, View, Datasheet View, you can see that car ID doesn't look like that, make doesn't, model doesn't, color, purchase, sale price, year, extras sold, date sold, these don't look like that field. However, if you look at the bought by field, you can see that this field does have information of the same format as the customer ID. So that kind of makes sense. Bought by, and then it's got the customer ID that bought that car. So bought by would therefore be linked to customer ID. So we drag customer ID to bought by and we hit create. And that's our relationship. So now just to take evidence of the following. So we're going to take screenshots to show the structure of the tables, showing all of the field types, primary keys, and relationships between these tables. So first of all, the field types or data types and primary keys and field names, to show that for each of these tables, what you want to do is go to each table and you go to Home, View, Design View, and you're just going to take a screenshot of this over here. So you can see here the field names, here the data types, and there's the primary key. So this is sufficient to show that information for the cars table. So we print screen. I'm going to go to evidence file. So for example, this is for step 2. Let's type step 2, paste it, and then you crop off everything that you don't need. So we only want to show this information for the cars table. Click anywhere else, and we enlarge it so that it is visible and you can read it clearly. Enter. And now we do the same for the other table, so customers. So we go to Home, View, Design View. So here are the field names, data types, primary key. So print screen, paste, and we crop off what we don't need. So field names, data types, and the primary key. Just be careful to include that. And you can see this is for the customers table. So that is good enough. So the next part of this question for evidence is to show the relationships between these tables. So what you can first off start by doing is just take the screenshot showing the link between these tables. So print screen, paste, and crop off what you don't need. And then just enlarge it so it's clearly visible. And the last thing is showing the relationship type between each of these fields. So what you can do is click on this link once, then double click straight away. And here you can see the relationship type is one-to-many between customer ID and bought by. So it's print screen. And we paste it and then crop off everything we don't need. And then just enlarge it so it is visible and you can clearly read what's in that screenshot. So that is the end of forming the relationships and taking screenshots of the structure of the tables, showing the data types, the field names, primary keys. And we also just remember change the field names so that there are no spaces in the field names.